you searching for fulfillment? Discover true happiness. Stay tuned to Shalom World.
G'day, welcome back to another Slice of Pizza. This week I'm joined by an incredible man that I really look up to, the Director of Renewal and Evangelization for the Diocese of Wollongong, Jude Hennessy. Jude, how are you?
Really good, Zach. Great to be with you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's really nice of you.
All the way down in New South Wales territory.
Yeah, down in the Gong. Good to have you here.
So tell us about what you do. Like, you work for the Diocese. I feel like the Director of Renewal and Evangelization is a bit of a vague role. What does that mainly involve?
Yeah, right. Well, I work for Bishop Brian Mascourt in Wollongong, and it's a role that 10 years ago, if I'd have named it, would have been something I thought that's really, really what I want to do. But it's evolved over the course of the last 10 years, and it certainly wasn't that when I started working for the Diocese. But the Director of Renewal and Evangelization really, I suppose, came at a point in time in our diocese where we were looking to take really seriously the idea of being a missional church and to start to think outside the square amidst a whole lot of things that were happening with what was being written by Pope Francis around the need for transformation of church, and got invited to a bit of a shift in a role from the diocese. I'd been director of CCD, which I think I'll talk about probably a little bit later on, but this opportunity became presented, and it was in some ways a really massive answer to prayer that I'll probably share with you a little bit later on too. It involves a whole gamut of things, and in a medium-sized diocese like Wollongong, I suppose it's being a little bit of a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And so it would include things such as CCD, which is the opportunity in New South Wales for us to go into state schools. So we've got about 600 volunteers who see almost 9,000 kids a week in 142 state schools. So there's that, which is one component, which is a great opportunity to share the gospel with young people, predominantly primary school kids. It's got some links with youth ministry as well, and we've got some great youth ministry initiatives going on in our diocese, and some guidance of, and some leadership of, and some direction with some really talented people that are heading
Lead
that.
an incredible team.
Oh, I'm so blessed with just the wonderful people that are seemingly here. It's a bit of a perfect storm in many ways, I feel, in our office. So there's that component. There's this stuff that's associated with renewal of parishes. We've got, I suppose, a bit of an approach that is trying to take the best of things that are happening both in Australia and around the world, often linked pretty strongly with some of the things associated with what might be regarded as divine renovation parishes. We're not calling it a DR model, but taking some of the best of those things and the things that the Australian Catholic bishops are saying, that's what we need our parishes to be like. And so working with parishes that want to come on that journey, there's stuff with liturgy, with ministry, with prayer, stuff that the bishop might need to do in I suppose, even things like formation with clergy, a whole lot of committees and things that you've got to be on for setting direction and vision for the diocese, and whatever else comes my way, which can be anything in a given week. But they're the predominant things that I've got some sort of leadership of, with, as you say, with a really dynamic and amazing team. I'm feeling.
So it's exactly what I thought. Like, literally everything that a diocese needs, you have a hand to play in the way that it rolls out and the way that people,
Yeah, it is. And I suppose one of the hard things about it, Zach, is how long's a piece of string. There are so many wonderful things that you could do in the context of renewal and evangelisation of a diocese. And if you tried to do them all, you'd probably be really ineffective. One of the great challenges for a diocese of our size, dare I say any size, is that if you try and be doing all things, you'll probably do very few things well.
Yeah.
And so we've had to be pretty targeted, and that's a journey, and sometimes that comes at a cost, and sometimes with a certain amount of criticism, but hopefully with a lot of fruit where you need it to be at the time.
And I guess in one of those roles where you're sort of, I guess, involved in lots of different areas, sometimes you can be a little bit removed from, I guess, the front lines of evangelization. But I know that you're a man who cares deeply about, evangelization. How do you find, I guess, being a little bit more behind the scenes now?
Well, that is a major component of the role, but I do try and remain fairly hands-on with some of the stuff that we're doing, whether it be training alpha teams or helping to deliver alpha in parishes or being linked in with the stuff that we're doing with CCD, which is a big gig and a lot of training of the people that are on the front line. So from that extent, I feel pretty integrally involved and my background is in teaching and I can't go for too long with at least trying to find some sort of a way where I can be involved in teaching and formation that are in these things, the people that are involved in these things in the diocese. So there is a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but fortunately in a diocese our size, when we've got something on, when we've got an event on, it's sort of like all hands on deck and everyone's contributing, which is great.
No, I remember being down here for a while ago and there was an event that the Perusia team were doing, and I saw you carrying chairs around and setting up food, and I'm just like, this guy's a guy who gets it, I really much admire that. But before you were in this role, you were teaching for a while. What was that experience like? How long did you teach for?
Mate, I taught for 20 years in a variety of schools, and I probably count a few years leading into starting as a teacher as sort of being a teacher as well. When I left school and studied at university, I became a catechist. So I got involved in teaching scripture in state schools. So that was my first in.
That's where your passion for CCD probably comes from.
Yeah, well, it was actually a bit of a journey that my parish priest, I was thinking about priesthood at the time, he said, great, well, I want you to get involved in some of the life of parish ministry. And so I went and did catechist teaching, and lo and behold, I fell in love with teaching. And I said, well, actually, this is where I want to be and what I want to do. And at that time, I'd also met my then girlfriend and later to be wife, Kerry. And so pretty much, instead of going down the priesthood line, which is what I was discerning at one point in time, I went down, well, I want to teach, I want to share my faith. And just the ability to be able to do it, first of all, in state schools, but then in Catholic schools, Catholic secondary schools, for me was like, that's where I want to be, And so that's why I made the choice to go into teaching, which I absolutely loved. In fact, I sort of had inklings of wanting to do that even when I was, in year 9 and 10 at school, because I had some amazing teachers. I had some incredible teachers who were not only really good practitioners and very competent in the way that they taught, just really good teachers, but men of faith too. And that, even though I came from a very, very faithful family, having someone external to the family who you could just go, wow, you get it, and this is clearly such a driving force, the fuel of your life, was for me, I suppose, the first seeds of thinking that, this is a way you can be not only in a really good job and vocation, but be really, really connected strongly with the mission of the church.
It's so interesting that you've sort of found your deeper vocation whilst like just going out on mission. I've heard the quote that ever since discernment became fashionable, no one's made a decision since, and I feel like a lot of young people just need to get off their bum and actually go out and go on mission to find out what it is that they do like, what it is that they don't. For you, it was teaching, and then you sort of went into school. I'm fascinated that your experience in school, in those schools when you're on mission, was seeing other young men or teachers, not young. I'm just used to saying young people all the time. Seeing men that were serious about their faith in the schools, teaching about the faith. That was so different to my experience. What was it like when you were actually teaching? Was it similar to what you experienced as a catechist, or was it probably maybe similar to mine, which was somewhat of like maybe a vaccination?
Yeah, no, I had an amazing first experience of teaching, and in that I started at a school that was pretty new, and so it was sort of being made from the ground up in many ways. And so I started in a year, and there were 8 first-year out teachers in the school. And we were surrounded by lots of other young teachers, some old heads that were in leadership, who made a very serious priority about the quality teaching of RE, made a really serious priority about quality spirituality days and retreat programs. And they did something that at the time I just thought was normal, but was really quite revolutionary, in that they said, we're going to have 2 teachers on every RE class. And that really cost them. Anyone who's been in the school knows about timetabling and number of hours teachers can teach. But they said, we want 2 people on RE classes. So your team taught RE, which was amazing. And RE for year 9 or year 10 or whatever was always on at the same time. So regularly we'd have, it was a 6-stream school at that stage, 12 teachers, and we'd just deliver what would be mini retreats and double periods to whole year groups. And that was part and parcel of the experience. And my first encounters with teaching RE, it was, as I think the way it should be, much more than a subject. Yeah. It was very much about bringing kids to prayerful encounters with testimony of teachers that were really believable from, and I've got to say, from some really authentic people that I got to teach with, and that for me sort of set a bit of a tone of this is what it's like, and what it could and should be like in lots of places in schools. So that was a real gift for me, and so I landed in a place actually with some of those men who taught me.
Wow.
But in a new school, in this incredible school that made this a massive priority. You could see that this was at the heart of why the school existed, So
that's maybe some things that people that are in positions of power can think about, is like having more RE teachers in, or at least like making it more of an experience. A lot of our viewers are probably young adults that are studying to become teachers, either that or nurses or engineers, but a lot definitely teachers. What are some things you feel are important as these young adults preparing to enter into schools? Maybe they're Catholic and there is a culture of faith, or maybe they're not Catholic and they're state schools and there is no faith there. What are some things that you feel like are important for them as they prepare for that?
Well, if they're looking to go into schools to be part of the mission of the church, and I suppose that's what I'd be hoping that young people who are making that decision to go into Catholic schools are certainly about. The first thing I'd say is be excellent. Be an excellent teacher. Like
work on your craft.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Be good in the way that not only you know your subject, you know when a teacher is competent, is confident in the teaching of their subject. And that doesn't matter if it's and I was a history, economics, geography teacher, and I love teaching those stuff. And I love teaching it from all ages, from year 7 to year 12. And kids pick up on...
Yeah, I definitely did. My PE teacher, he loved the human body. And I still remember the things he taught me in year 12 because he loved it. And when he loved it, I was like, wow, this is actually interesting as well.
Yeah. And you capture that. Like, kids get caught up in and drawn into the passion that people have for a subject. And when that transfers into a subject, that's great. But when that transfers into something like faith formation, religious education, and it's more than just religious education, when that is borne out and you know that you've got a teacher as a student who actually believes it and has clearly made a choice in their lives where this is very, very central to who they are. In fact, it's the pivotal thing in their life. Then kids know that. And at different points in time, when I moved through the ranks of teaching and ended up as an REC and on executives and as a director of mission in different schools, kids would come and say to you, particularly kids of faith, but sometimes kids who were just dipping their toe in the water of faith, they would come and say to you when they had a teacher who really believed it, I love this class because you know that this person is real and authentic. But the alternative was true too. And sometimes that's the way. Sometimes when you've got someone who's got to take a class and maybe it's not really, they're not reached the point in their journey where they've really embraced their own faith. Yeah. Kids know that too. And so while the authentic teacher is really convincing and really convicting for kids of faith and for kids who are on the journey to faith, or perhaps agnostic and atheist, and kids will tell you that they clearly are, and that's great. You want to work with those kids. No one wants a fence sitter. They're often the best kids to be working with. When you've got a teacher who's doing that really authentically, they know it and they appreciate it, but they also, it almost de-evangelises sometimes when you've got people who are not in that sort of an ilk or in that sort of a mindset, or essentially can't give what they haven't got, And I'm not saying that negatively judging anyone in the midst of that. We're all becoming deeper in our own conversion and faith. But I tell you, and I still have contact with some of the kids that I taught, and please God, that was the experience of a lot of kids that I taught, but so many of them will say, hey, we knew you loved us and we knew that you were serious and that you were faithful. And that I think is where the rubber hits the road for kids in terms of believability and authenticity. It then prepares them to be able to say, is there something to this? So
what about if a teacher is going into a school and they've honed their craft and they've worked on their own personal relationship with Jesus, but they're facing some flack and there's a culture there that's not conducive to a Christian relationship, and they're not invited to play cards at lunchtime table because they're the Christian guy. I definitely have faced that in some of the schools, and I just wanted to get maybe some of your experience of that and any encouragement you could give us.
Hey, it's a reality. I guess you've got to say that our Catholic schools are a microcosm of our society in many ways. And while we've probably got a bit more of a critical mass of people who really solidly embrace faith and would be absolutely there for all the right missional reasons, with all the right attitudes and the heart that they bring to the sharing of faith, you're going to get some people who are still on that journey, or perhaps not on that journey, and don't want to be on that journey.
Way, yeah.
Absolutely, that's the reality, and that's the nature of schools, particularly big schools. I guess in the midst of that, I'd say that be part of the critical mass of teachers. They reckon you need about 15% of an organisation to really set and create a culture. So it doesn't matter if you're a first-year out teacher or the principal. Be looking for ways to contribute to that culture, which is really deliberately embracing mission. And that can be not only in the way that you teach and the way that you pray and the way that you prioritise what are the aspects of faith that should be part of a school, but just in the conversations as well. Because you're going to be journeying with people who, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, are looking at you and benefiting from your own witness. That's the reality too. And as an REC, I would sometimes have people who'd be, hey, you've got to teach RE this year. They did not want to be there. They did not want to be doing it, And others who, you knew that that's exactly why they were there. But that's an opportunity too. That's an opportunity in the formation that goes for teachers where they're being evangelised too. I've got a great mate who's a Baptist minister, and I remember having a whinge to him one day about this, and he said, "Are you kidding me? You really expect me to listen to you whinging? You've got all of these people who are Catholic in the one spot, and you've got this great opportunity for all this formation, not only of the kids but the staff." He said, "If we wanted to do that as a Baptist church, we'd have to go door knocking. This school system we've got represents an incredible opportunity, a unique opportunity that if we're not using that, I think Jesus would say, hey, I gave this to you on a platter, not only for the formation of kids, but for all of the people that are involved in this undertaking."
Parents.
Absolutely. And it happens, it does happen. I've seen, and I've been in schools where at the end of that process of, I've got to my last school I was at, we just threw it out there to a bunch of kids who we knew weren't Catholic, just one message in a bulletin. I read out at a morning messages just saying, hey, for a lot of you guys, you've been coming to school, you've been through RE classes, you've been part of the retreats, etc., etc. If any of you are interested in exploring the Catholic faith, then, hey, come and have a chat to me. And it was almost like, come and have a quiet chat to me and I won't tell anyone. Yeah. I had 18 students become Catholic that year and 5 staff.
Wow.
That was amazing. And so you just don't know what happens when people are bubbling away, getting slow cooked in that Catholic culture. So my attitude would be part of deliberately, overtly, and sometimes just in the way that you're a really good bloke or a really good girl, a really good friend with people, that people get drawn into faith,
And it does make a difference. Like I definitely experienced that in my time in the schools, and some of the teachers that gave me flack for the whole year, who I thought there's no way they've listened to a thing that I've said on any of the retreats they've been to. Like they're the ones that you can often have the biggest difference in. They were the ones that came to me at the end of the year and said, there's something different about you, and I'm curious.
I reckon that's why Jesus was saying he's not up for lukewarmness. You can't deal with this disconnected, I don't know if it is, I don't know if it isn't. When you're almost got a better chance of connecting with and having conversations with people who are a little bit anti what you're about.
Yeah.
That's why I'm sure Jesus said, I will spit the lukewarm out of our mouth, because they're just so hard to get to, So, take the opportunity.
And so, that's a bit of your experience in the schools. Like, what was it that made you move out of the schools and start to work for the diocese?
I thought I would never leave the school that I was in, I've got to be honest. I was in a job that if I could have picked it 20 years prior to starting. I was director of mission in an amazing school. It was a boys' boarding school, incredible music, and I love my music, and just the most amazing worship at masses. There was part of that was because of the boarders that were there. Wonderful sporting school. I'm mad about my cricket and my rugby league. Don't mention the origin. Don't mention it again anyway. And was coaching the first grade in the cricket, running all these retreats and doing some incredible things in just the teaching of religious education. I was on long service leave with the Morris brothers, who I was working with at the time. Myself and my wife, Kerry, my 2 daughters, Tara and Rachel, who were still at school at that time. We went to a place called Bougainville, and there'd been a civil war.
That is not a real place.
Yeah, it's a real place. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, it's east of Papua New Guinea, and it's just a really rich area in gold and copper. The Australian BHP was in there, and they'd had a civil war over around about 15 years, and the place just got decimated. And we had the opportunity to go up there and help to rebuild a school. And I took a couple of months off to go and retrain some teachers and all that sort of stuff in the midst of it too. And there was this volcano in the background, I kid you not, and I thought it was thunder every day, and said, no, it's the volcano, and you'd feel a little shake. But just on my walks of an afternoon, usually just to be able to go and jump in a river and cool off, it was so hot, just felt God put on my heart, I've got something else for you to do. And the volcano would rumble, and I'd go, yeah, okay. But this happened over a period of weeks, and I just sat with it, and then I shared it with my wife, Kerry, and we spoke about it, because I'm going, well, I'm never leaving this place because it's my dream job. But it was funny, it was put on my heart really quite deliberately, and when you know something like that's been put on your heart, it's hard to run away from. And on our return, I'd been doing all this almost negotiating with God. Well, if you want me to do something else, it needs to be this, it needs to be that, and I'd love to work with our bishop, and it's got to still be with young people, and it'd have to be an evangelization, and blah, blah, blah. And literally the plane landed we landed on the Saturday, and we bought the paper, and the job was there sitting in the paper. And my wife just came and circled it and gave me a cup of tea and said, well, be careful what you pray for. Wow. And things just unfolded from there. And I left a school that I absolutely loved to be involved in at a critical point of time, I've got to say, when this opportunity to go into state schools was under threat, and we began a really long period then of, instead of teaching Year 9 on a Friday afternoon, I was having conversations with parliamentarians and education ministers and whoever else to present the Catholic viewpoint about why what we do in state schools is such an important part of a good education for kids in state schools too. Anyway, that's how it happened. It happened in a really unexpected way, where just felt that prompting in the heart and did something that not only did I not think I'd be doing, but I didn't want to do, but I knew I couldn't say no. Yeah. I don't know if that sounds weird, but that's how it happened.
No, it's pretty incredible. And I think you've gone from doing some incredible things in the schools, and what you're doing here in Wollongong is absolutely incredible. And I think the thing behind it is your relationship with Jesus, which I think is obviously foundational for all of us in whatever job we're doing, whether it's a high school teacher or a nurse or engineer or whatever. We're just so grateful for your time on the show. Thank you for joining us on Another Slice of Peace. That's all we've got time for this week. But Jude, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, mate. Good on you.
See you next week.
Thanks.
A lot of talk in our church today about the new evangelization, and we might ask, well, what's new about the new evangelization? One thing that's new is that we're trying to renew the faith in people who should already be Catholic, should already be Christian. Individuals, families, communities, whole cultures that need to rediscover the gospel. And so what's new is that they're getting a new shot in the arm of faith, of evangelization. But another thing that's new about it is the way that we do that. And the new media and groups like Shalom World TV are very important for bringing the gospel anew to our cultures, to our families, to each of us individually. And so I encourage all the viewers of Shalom World TV, and I encourage Shalom World TV themselves to keep up the good work, to keep watching this channel and to keep up the good work of presenting the Catholic faith to our world today.